Thank you very much. Mr. Tao.
First off, I love the dramatic side lighting. What if we do this? Any better? One quick note that I want to make before we get things rolling here. I talked to Eric Addison today. I know most of you guys know Eric. He runs the premier group in town. He has gotten a hold of the folks up at X-Rite. And I don't know if all of you guys know who X-Rite is. They make like a chip chart solution where you can theoretically shoot this chip chart, bring it into your edit system, basically draw a box around the chip chart, and it automatically color corrects you to a neutral color correction. It's actually a pretty cool tool that I've used a couple of times. He's got them coming down to do a demo of that on August 17th, and you know where it's going to be because you're sitting in the room that it's going to be. So they're coming down on August 17th, but watch the Premiere Pro user group on Facebook or the SDMediaPros site or even the Final Cut Pro X user group. We'll make mention of that as well. So with that out of the way, tonight's a little bit about motion graphics. And there's 3 different speakers that are going to speak tonight. So I'll introduce them before each one of them comes up. So I'll start it off with a gentleman by the name of David Hughes. David is a motion graphics guy here in town that I've worked with on a few jobs. We actually both worked with a crazy client that gave us tons of great stories to talk about. But David does amazing work. Some of his clients include the National Football League, Harley Davidson Motorcycles, Cox Communications, and that's a very small list. He works with a ton of people. And what Dave's going to talk to you a bit about tonight, he's going to show some of the work that he does, but also talk to you about the design process so that when you need to go and find a motion graphics professional to help you with your project, what are the questions that you need to ask? What's the process look like? So David's going to talk about that, and with that, I'm just going to turn it over to Mr. David Hughes. We do have 2 other speakers, and I'm just going to wait until it's time for them.
Is this thing working?
Keep you in suspense.
All right, cool. Well, I was supposed to come here like a year ago, and my son wrecked at a BMX race, so I didn't make it. But I'm glad to be here. So what I'm going to talk about tonight is the non-motion part of motion graphics. This is the part where you really, graphic design comes into play. And a lot of my background is I was originally an illustrator, and then I went to school, and they told me never to come back after the first quarter because I was the youngest kid to get into this school because all I drew was cars and girls. And they said, you can't make a living doing that. So I was leaving the school, and a teacher of mine later, she stopped me. And she said, when you come back next quarter, why don't you take graphic design and see what this is all about? So from there, I discovered the world of graphic design, and it has bled into everything that I worked on, from animation to painting murals on buildings, anything out there. Even when I watch a movie, I can tell my wife if the movie's going to be good after the first text comes up. If they can't get that right, they probably won't get the movie right. So let me show you guys a couple, and I got this new little toy here, and we'll see if it works. It's a little bitty projector. I'll see if I can get this guy to... So what I'm going to show you is just some almost print design elements. Let's see if this guy comes up. Okay, so what this project is we were doing some promotion stuff for a video game. And my son actually picked this one for me to show you guys because it's got the DeLorean from Back to the Future in it. So as a designer, they came to us and they said, we need a promotion element. We might do this video game with this car from Back to the Future. So we want a brochure to sell the car, almost like you would go to buy a Lexus or buy whatever cool cars out there you want to get. So they wanted to keep it in a higher end kind of luxury car, even though it's a DeLorean with a bunch of parts from an aerospace museum on it. So what we had to do was, okay, how are we going to sell this car? So we came up with the idea, Doc Brown Motors, and we had to research Back to the Future and how are we going to update this to today. And we actually picked the car from the 3rd movie because it's the car that really has got the least love. It's the one with the old tires on it, and it went in the field. It just didn't get the love like the first car did. And So what we did first as a graphic designer now, this isn't getting any motion or anything. So what are we working with? We started looking at the car itself to see shapes on the car. Very, very squared off car. Not much going on there, not a lot, except for the cool doors that open up. So for our design, we started thinking we're going to have to use some angles to get some interest against this car. Parts like this, that was, oh, and the other thing, now, not just the typography, the colors, we had to build the car in 3D because we couldn't get a car to shoot. So the car is completely built in 3D. So as a graphic designer, we had to figure that out, how it's going to work with our graphics that we're going to lay over this thing. So here is a few ideas to start how maybe our brochure will look. And is anyone here a photographer? Okay. I can't take a picture to save my life. For some reason, I'm a designer, but when I take a picture, your heads are all cut off. So I really have to work hard when it comes to laying stuff out, when it comes to photography. And this is the first step we started getting into, is bringing some elements to show time with the theme of that car. And then this is some just basic graphic design stuff. We needed to bring in some elements that would be little, I call them gizmos, little graphics that would accompany this beautiful car, typography, which is going to be your copy that you're going to read about the car. And what we had to do is we researched the DeLorean mark that's actually on the vehicle, the typography they use, the shapes that they used. And it's very, I'd say 70s, 80s looking, the cheesiest font you could find in your font library, they used, which is cool. So we had to get numbers and these shapes that were really boxy, just like the car. So that's getting back into simple graphic design before we move anything. And I'll say this, I think print design is the hardest design there is to do. Motion graphics, I can hide stuff with a lens flare. That's why they're always there. Or I can pull your eye, or I can pull your ear with a sound effect. Print is right there. It's either good or it isn't. So, and I think those skills, when you are looking for a designer, if you guys don't have those skills, that's a skill set that's really hard to find, is a very, very clean print designer. And we came up with a graphic for the flux capacitor, just trying to bring, just corporate world into this. And then here's elements that will lay out in the brochure. And so far, this is only a print piece. There's no motion that's going to happen yet. But with my background now in motion graphics and 3D animation, I always have that in mind when I'm putting together just graphics, especially for like TV station graphics packages. You got to have a consistent, clean look to carry through that whole brand of that station. And you want to try to set it up for the other artists that work there, the people that go out and shoot, everyone that's involved in the creative. You want those graphics thought out, from your typography to your colors to your shapes, even the emotion of the movement of those graphics. You want to really lay out ahead of time, and that'll cut out a lot of the details as far as trying to reinvent the wheel every time you get to the graphics. You can just get them, use them, do your thing, and move on. So that's what this is kind of helping us. Okay, we're going to put this in. We might put some type on that bar, and we're trying to keep it kind of square with a little bit of angular stuff to match the car. And then we had to change the plate because the plate is I guess it's copywritten. So I changed it to that because, again, if you're a graphic designer, you say this a lot. After the 90th time you show someone something, and then you're usually hanging in your office. But that's the frustration. That's actually the part still to this day. I've been doing this since I was a teenager. And anytime I start a project, I tell my wife, it's like, do I know anything? Did I go to school? Because I can't get anything down on a piece of paper yet. And it's just that process that you go through. It's almost like being an athlete. You just got to get beat up for a couple rounds. And then if you can stay in the fight, this stuff starts coming to you. And if you push it even harder, because sometimes you'll do the same thing you've done for a while, but pushing it. And I'm actually going back to school again. And I'm older than some of the instructors. It's because I found my work was kind of repeating itself. And I wanted to push myself while I still can. I maybe have a few more years. So this is the beginning of the brochure. So we build this car. Now we're going to shoot it. I saw the artwork out front. You guys shoot cars here, right? I'm a car freak. So very good work. So I'm wanting this car to really, and since we built it 3D, we've got like a wireframe over it and some other graphics that we're laying over. The typography, our little logo that we've designed up. And then we go into the different pages, and these are spreads, just like back in the day of magazines. This is a double spread. So on the left, you're going to get some typography, and all that stuff was thought out before we ever got to this process. So the car, anything could be back there. That's what you kind of have to think when you're dealing with typography and the other graphics. Especially, we do a lot of sports graphics packages, and it's all eye candy. But the real star on those things is the typography. So my job is for the guy who has 27 beers that's in the back of the bar, he can still read the score on the bug. No matter how pretty the bug is, but that's graphic design. It's the typography is the information that you want to get. The rest of it is just eye candy behind it. So this look starts to carry through the whole brochure that we've laid out. And these are just a couple of the pages. And we've brought in these little graphic elements along with the typography. And all this stuff is called out with what the copywriter gives us and they want. Now, this piece might end up going to motion in a commercial if they do this video game, where they're actually going to do like a cheesy car commercial where they're selling DeLoreans down at Doc Brown Motors. So our look would carry into that spot, into that motion spot. So our design's kind of already laid out.
Where do you get your original graphics? From stock photos on the internet?
These graphics, I created the car in 3D and text. That's the other thing that I do now. I do a lot of 3D stuff, which I thought graphic design was insane. Hours to get that steel to look like that. And so that's where my design skills come into, where I can kind of beat out someone on a job. There's a lot of folks that can model, do 3D texturing, make it look great. But can they sell it? Can I fool them into thinking, wow, is that a brochure? Can I go buy that car? That's where that edge comes from. And I think that's from my background in graphic design. That goes into social media stuff that we do, especially the television stuff. Because a lot of television stuff it just needs to be cleaned up. It needs a designer to come in and help you get it cohesive. And, but yeah, if we need photography, we'll either work with photographers or we'll get stock photography. Like I say, I still am in the frame of mind where I cannot do everything, and I hope I never have to do everything, especially shooting. I'm not good at shooting video. I'd rather be doing the graphics. So I always reach out to a really professional person that knows that. And I would do that the same with photography.
What product for your 3D do you use? What program?
Now I use Maya. I have used Electric Image, Lightwave, all sorts of them. Maya, again, you got to be insane. It's so detailed, and I'm even going back to school for it, and I've been using it for 30 years. So Maya's really, there's Cinema 4D. There's other apps now that are doing amazing things with 3D.
Did you find that you had to hopscotch your way through all these other products before you finally resolved yourself to having to use Maya?
No, they're very similar, all of them. And what it is it's like what your craft is. You start to get into it, and when you start to think three-dimensional and you can get around that, any program you can pretty much fall into after that. But you usually want to find your tool. Maya, 3D Studio Max, and a new one that's really making a run for it is Cinema 4D, which is a lot easier than Maya. And they're doing some incredible stuff along with After Effects.
Yeah, you hear
Cinema 4D has done they're smart. They're really smart doing that. because I'm a very rare,
Standalone product, though.
yeah. No, well, you can get it with After Effects now. They sell it in a bundle if you get like a special. So Maya is what I use. And then for graphic design, I use Adobe Illustrator. I use InDesign. Have you guys heard of those too? Yeah. InDesign is awesome. And again, it's like an old dog with new tricks. I'll just use Illustrator. I worked with this one designer. She used InDesign. She was done in like half the day. I was still working. I'm like, how'd you do that? So she showed me. And InDesign's a really powerful tool. And the other one is, of course, Photoshop. Photoshop is in everything that we do. And let me see. As far as layout stuff, it used to be Quark. You guys ever hear of that? Yeah. Quark, PageMaker, all that stuff. I tend to use InDesign now for all that. Yeah. So it's sort of taken the. Yeah. This is finally the final of this was InDesign.
What about resolution? How do you decide what resolution you're going to work on?
Oh, that's a great question. I build everything huge. The biggest. This is 8K. This the image of the car. So to render that out takes forever. But and also if you use Illustrator as a graphic designer, InDesign, you're dealing in vector. And vector art can also be brought into After Effects. And I've become a huge fan of vector art over the years because you don't get caught in that resolution situation where you have to blow something up and it gets fuzzy as far as the graphics go. So yeah, we try to work in that frame of mind. I always try to work with clients and I tell them, okay, you're hiring me, because we mostly get motion design stuff. I said, I'm going to tell you something. What we're going to do with your project is we're going to design it in the beginning where you can use it in print also. You can use it in your promotion. You can use it on the web. It will not just be a motion graphic piece. So if you see something in the video that we do or the animation that we do, hey, that would look great on the side of a truck or here. That's why we always build everything in Illustrator. And that, again, comes from a graphic design thought process. The other thing that I'm sure all you guys have dealt with is asking a client for a logo. And you usually get a JPEG. Now, in the graphic design world, we will burn you at the stake. JPEGs are horrible. So what I end up having to do with a lot of folks is we get working with animation stuff, and they're like, whoa, you know a lot about this design. We don't even have a line art of our logo. Cox Communication, I'm working with them right now. They sent me a logo, and I'm like, guys, who did this? It's all ratty. And, well, this agency. And I'm like, an ad agency. So they want to charge you another 8 hours to do it right. So anyways, we clean that up for them. And we save it off in two ways. If there's typography involved in your brand, in your logo, that needs to be accompanied with that logo. There needs to be a version that is line art and a version that is the typography. And you need to supply them the fonts because JPEGs just don't work. Once you get into print, they'll fall apart. They'll cause, yeah, they
I guess I understand what you mean by line art, but what are you meaning by typography?
This is from my frustration of the years working in the TV over at Channel 10.
Can you repeat her question, please?
Her question was, she knows what line art is, but what did I mean about typography or fonts? What I mean by that is, if you have a logo that's created with Trade Gothic font, and you just maybe tweaked it a little bit, but it's still the font, you need to, we supply our clients with that typography, with that font. Oh. And also with a file before that font has been turned into a line art, because what we find is, oh, we really like that font, we maybe want to use it in another part of our brand. And then that's the other part that we come in and help folks with is branding, cleaning up, and that's actually a lot of fun. You get to come in and really kind of pull things together. If so-and-so on Friday thought this typography was cool and we should start using that, you build a thing called a style guide. And now I was telling Mike, in LA, I just worked on a couple things and they call them toolkits. And so I guess that's a new thing. But basically, you guys know what a style guide is, right? You get the colors that you have to use, the typography, and all that good stuff. So we do a lot of that. we do that with every one of our jobs. When I send out an After Effects project after it's done, I'll send the font with it. I'll send directions on how the logo's done, the colors that we used, all that to help those guys take that and grow off of it instead of reinventing the wheel every project. So that's graphic design. And then this project here, we did another one with Adidas. And that was an interesting one. So where's that bad boy? There it is. Okay, so this guy, Adidas already had the toolkit. But it was kind of, they gave us, hey, you can go have fun with it. So we did. And they came back and said, that's way too much fun. But I pushed it. I said, you know what? Yeah, you guys said. And out of that, we actually eliminated a couple things. They ended up going, you know, maybe we should literally take that out of the toolkit because we did tell you to have fun, and there is red things in our toolkit, and I like the color red, so it was used. So going through that process, I'm now involved with those guys, not only as, they brought me in as a motion guy. So they show me this artwork that their designers are doing for this shoe. And at first they call me and they go, we want a 3D shoe. And I'm like, really? Shoes are really hard to do. They're designed, they're almost like a medical piece. They're very, very structured in the way they're designed. So sometimes when you do them three-dimensional, if you don't scan them, someone who really knows that shoe, and if the designer's in that meeting, that's not my shoe. So I told them the price, and they said, we're not doing a 3D shoe. So we shot everything on a broomstick, turned it, and all that fun stuff. So, but we had to shoot it based off of what we're seeing on these pieces. This is another spot that we just, as a graphic designer, they just wanted me to come up with, they call them tech call-outs. So as this shoe's doing something, we track all these graphics around it. And I was just the designer and just handed over the graphics, and those After Effects guys did their thing. Another piece. So I came up with about 15 different ideas to show these guys what we could maybe do with these call-outs. And finally they picked them. This one I thought was pretty cool, but it's real contrasty. So from there, once they got that look and feel that they wanted and typography, we literally made a toolkit. So all these animators can just go, oh yeah, I know this font has to be this. We like these little lines with dots and all that good stuff. So again, that's just graphic design, but now it's going into cool motion, which I love. Motion design is amazing. And After Effects has made that world so cool. I worked on, anyone here of a Henry or a Howe Quantels paint box? Like $1 million machines, right? And once you married something to something, it was done. I think you had 2 channels, they called it. And once it was married, you were done. So when Photoshop came out and they did the layers, Quantel just, remember that? Yeah, but they really were the beginning. That's where I was lucky enough to get an internship somewhere, and I learned on those machines. And
well, I remember when Quantel, Harry, and all that stuff, and Photoshop, to make a font in Photoshop, you had to like, oh, well, if you want a drop shadow, you got to step move.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my God.
Very paint box.
I can type this out in the character generator like that. And so, but it was a maze. I was amazed. I still am amazed that Adobe grew up.
The tech
grew up.
And as we all know, the last few, tech has really changed it for us. Tech got me into this, and now tech is making me have to compete even harder because it's open to more people. It used to be if you had the guts to go out and spend enough money to buy a car, to buy one of these things and get started as one of these, whatever you're doing, shooting, graphics, whatever it might be, you were elite. And it was a really, I see it, we were pioneers because I was doing stuff, I don't know what the hell I was doing. There was no school, there was no tutorials. You just call your buddy at 3 in the morning, man, I don't know what I'm doing, but can you help me? So been through the whole gamut of how this tech has come into play with basically what I'm talking about is layout with a drawing board, a T-square, a triangle, I still start everything that I work on with sketching stuff on pieces of paper, still this day. And I have blue, I'm an old comic book artist, so I draw in blue first, and then I go back over it in pen. And what that helps me do is work through what's in my head before these help me with that, because sometimes they'll really help you out, won't they? Yeah, I'll just use that filter. That looks cool. But does it? Is it really what that needs? And that goes back to, and my son's 10 years old, and he's as stubborn as me, and he's starting to work on this stuff. And I tell him, I'm like, Lucas, let's draw. Let's not even draw. Let's talk about stuff. Let's go look at stuff. And I will say this, as a graphic designer, you become a very good thief. When you see something good, and the wheel has been invented, you know, and yeah, it's especially with the internet now, you can really get carried away with that stuff. But, so what this guy turned into, eventually we did this motion stuff. And again, we shot that shoe because we couldn't afford to do it in 3D. And we did it in there's different colors. This is the white shoe, there was a gray shoe, there was all these shoes. Okay, now we're shooting it. Who in here is shooters? I love clients sometimes, and they're Adidas. They're like, this is so awesome. Let's just switch the shoe out. And I'm like, each shoe's different because we freehand shot it. And they're like, wait a minute, the green shoe doesn't rotate like the red shoe? I'm like, it kind of does, but it kind of doesn't. So we have all this typography that's interacting with these things. And so all these graphics that are coming in, we don't know if the green shoes, so we had to do each one kind of custom for each guy. So in the long run, the 3D might have been a better way to go. But this was fun keying, white on white. And what's fun, what I like is as a graphic designer, a motion guy, we always get stuck in our caves. You kind of don't even know we exist sometimes. People come out, you're that guy? You actually do this? Who are you? But what I really enjoy is on this, I got to work with these young guys up in LA that were amazing photographer guys. Just, they were all into it. And one guy told me, because I used to be the youngest guy in the room, now I'm kind of getting to be a little bit older. So this one kid says to me, he goes, how old are you? I said, well, I'm 48. He goes, you're pretty young for 48. Because what happened was, he was trying to rotate the shoe with a broom thing, and it wasn't steady. And so I brought out a ladder, and I said, let's lay the broom on the ladder and turn it like that, because we can always move the video. And he looked at me like, that's a good idea. So what I'm really presenting, I'm not going to be showing the whiz-bang of what these computers can do. What I wanted to talk to you guys about and really show you guys is basically as a graphic designer that comes into this world of animation, motion, video, all this great stuff, movies, television. Really what you want to start with is your core just graphic design skills, trying to get everything to be cohesive, trying to eliminate problems. That's really what graphic design is, it's problem solving. So you're trying to make something as far as a brand or maybe even a look that you're handing off to other creative folks. It's probably like being a writer. You want them to have no issues with those pieces and parts. You want them to run with that. And you want to cut out a lot of brain work where they're like, should we use that font? Should we use that color? That stuff's kind of already taken care of by the designer. And so for me, that's bled into becoming a motion graphics guy. And then with the 3D, what I've found in that realm is that skill set is not looked on very much in 3D. They're very much into that thing that they're making. But what is that thing going to do? Where is it going to go? How many people really make creatures? So as a 3D artist, you got to think outside the box a little bit. There's a lot of people making 3D creatures up in Hollywood and whatever. But how many are there in a movie? There's a lot more effects, the opens of these films, the graphics that are in sports especially. We do stuff for stadiums, television. Then that stuff bleeds into wrapping stadiums just with print stuff. That goes into tickets. It just bleeds into everything. And that's graphic design, guys. That's what I do. So, any questions? Mike?
Can you talk a little bit about your creative process, the inspiration process? You know, I mean, I know a lot of us have different things.
Oh.
Try to get away from the box and let the brain breathe.
My problem is I have too many ideas. That's good and bad. I usually overwhelm a client at first, and I do it every time. My inspiration is when I was a kid, Star Wars happened. The movie industry just got real cool. And then MTV happened. And all of a sudden, this station was doing stuff that just was cool. And that's kind of where I got really interested in this stuff. And from there, what I do to get inspired is I'm a huge car guy. I love movies. So if you're hiring me for a job, you're going to hear me reference movies nonstop. You know, in that part where the airplane does this or the spaceship does this, we should do that. And I usually communicate in sound effects most of the time. And we should do a whoosh, and it's going to go whoosh. And they're like, so what is that going to be? And that's where storyboarding comes in. I'm a huge fan. Like if I was a filmmaker, I would be a storyboard guy. I really love storyboarding because it is a story. No matter what you're doing, it really is a story and you're trying to entertain people. And storytelling comes from when I was a kid with my buddies. I just always loved telling crazy stories. So storyboarding, I look at, I'll go to the bookstore and just hang out and just look at stuff. Look at stuff not even interested in. And what's surprising is you're looking at that stuff like cameras. I love looking at old vintage cameras. It's just gorgeous. Just the workings, the inside, the guts of that stuff. I look at a lot of auto for my typography inspiration, gauges on old vintage automobiles. Because all that stuff, there were craftsmen making that stuff. And you had to be able to read it because you're moving, you're driving. So that typography has to be so legible. And I believe craftsmen just were involved, just especially on the really old cars. That's where I get a lot of ideas for my graphics, the beveled edges. All that. You're going to see something of a Corvette in my work every job I do.
You got to hit cruising grand.
Yes. And then the other thing is film. I think what happened, you probably hear this from a ton of people, it was Star Wars for me. And what I learned from that movie wasn't just, my favorite thing in that movie was the sound, was the audio. If you turn off the audio in Star Wars, it's not a good a movie. It isn't. And what it showed me as a kid is there's a guy doing that. There's a girl doing the graphics, building the spaceships. They're people. They're not just actors and these people that are, made out to be these kingpins in this place we all want to go and be creative. And I think that happened for us in our generation is it really opened up. And a group of people came in and just did some cool stuff. And they became stars. You all of a sudden knew who the model maker was. You knew who the music person was. Makeup. Like I was talking to the makeup artist that's here. I used to airbrush. And I used to airbrush people. I used to work down in Daytona Beach because I get sunburned, so my friends would all go out and meet the girls. And I would get a job at an airbrush joint, make money so we could stay there for a couple weeks. And from that, I learned a lot about makeup. And that process has come into my 3D work of lighting. I'm studying lighting right now. Lighting is key to everything. It's unbelievable what lighting can do. So all that, even though I'm talking production, that's still graphic design. I'm still looking at it as a typography piece. We're going to do this lighting on this. We're going to do these colors. We're going to bring in these graphics. It's going to move like this. It's not going to move like this. So that's my inspiration is I just eat and I love movies. I love the new TV shows that they're doing with The Flash. My son loves. I watched that show going, I want to work on that show. So that's where, and comic books, cars, anything metal, I love. Architectural, right now I'm doing a job that's all glass. which I regret doing because it takes forever to render. I studied architecture for that job. I studied staircases that were made of glass to see really the refraction and just what glass really does if you light it right. So yeah, really anything. But I do go hang out at the bookstores are awesome, man. I hope they never go away. Paper. So, anything else?
How do you identify and isolate the essence of the message that you're trying to get across? We've been talking about all the techniques, but you're obviously trying to get a message across to the audience.
That's the emotional part, and that's where a storyboard comes in, and that's where, as a graphic designer, we're trying to actually get down the emotional feel of what this image is going to project. So that comes a lot from me working with a client.
But do you start with a message and try to figure out how to get that across?
Yeah. Usually we start with a message. We start with key. Basically, they'll tell us what they're trying to do with this brand.
As a phrase? Or?
Sometimes a phrase, and a lot of times now I run into where people are hoping I dig that out of their heads. And that's why you're showing 50 things until they see what they want. But what I try to do is talk with them, just like we're talking now. And what I tell them, what do you dig? What do you like? What kind of car do you drive? What movie do you watch? Do you like to walk in parks? What do you like? Because when you're usually working on something, you're trying to bring a little bit of yourself into it, and people will respond to something that they are interested in. So that's what I do a lot of is I talk. The sports stuff, I've done sports stuff so long, I could do that in my sleep. I just worked, that project that me and Mike worked on that was, my military background got me through that one. Those guys just needed help cleaning up their image, and they were a self-help place. But they didn't want to come off, you can't be too corporate, because you'll completely turn everybody off, because they know you're after their money. So that was exactly what you're talking about. They brought me in to bring that from the ground up as far as their image, that feel, that message had to project through every image that we used on their website, to their print, to the videos we were shooting.
So you have to identify what's the takeaway you want your audience to have.
Exactly. So you definitely don't want them to think that you're a corporate entity. And then like Apple's genius at what they've done, but I think too many people are doing Apple stuff. I can't wait till the minimalist thing goes away. If I have to put one more thing over white.
So I got a question. Kind of following on this, if you've got a client that you're kind of dialing into the way their brain works, but you know that the audience they're trying to serve isn't him. Where, I really want to like this, but that's not going to help them. Because,
Yeah.
Like you're not my client. I mean, you're not there. The guy who's the client isn't the end user that you really need to influence.
And still you're working for that guy. You're working for that client.
It's like
Yeah.
the guys in the checkbook holder. Right?
Yeah. And that brings in an interesting thing where I've hired folks to work, unbelievable designers, unbelievable artists. And the folks that can't get a grasp on that actually it's a job. And we are working for people that have their idea of what that should be. And if you can't work in that, and at the end of the day, get that done for them and walk away and go, hey man, that was cool. It wouldn't be what I would have done if I was doing this myself. That is a serious test of an artist, if you can do that. If you can't do that, you're gonna have a really hard time. Because I do that every gig. I have to, well, there's been some of that, and then there's been some times where I'm like, you know what? That actually was right. That actually didn't need the 67 Corvette taillight in it. And I think that's part of when I get back to saying, really what I've learned about graphic design is it is problem solving. We're all coming together to try to solve this visual piece and get it out there where we're all happy with it. And as the guy that's putting it together, sometimes I got to go, you know what? If that's the blue you want, we're going to rock and roll with that blue. And I try to learn from that because I've seen a lot of other folks not do so well when your ego gets in there. So on the weekend, do your thing. Go out there and blow up a thing on the screen and have metal text flying. So that's pretty much it, guys. I didn't want to show much of the stuff. I'm going back old school. I hope you guys, that's still out there. I still have a drawing table that I draw on. Yeah.
I only wish I could draw. Hey, Robin, you want to set up your thing? In the meantime, while Robin's setting up, I'm going to have Nick Naka come up and talk to you a little bit about his studio, this lovely place that we're sitting in this evening.
Thing's pretty cool, isn't it? No, it's great. It's running on the battery now, so as long as that thing
Lovely
down,
studio.
You'll be cool.
I'm sorry. Glowing off the top of my head. Welcome, and thanks for coming. Check out the website. We rent the place. There's rates, there's dimensions, photos, everything on there. It's Riverdale-studios.com, or you can just search Riverdale Studios. We're still here, and we're going to stay here at least for a few more years, hopefully longer. But right now, the lease is good till 2020. And I think the owner's this is a big redevelopment zone, so they're planning to redevelop. But hopefully he'll delay that and we'll be able to stay longer. So we have a couple other events coming up that you guys may be interested in. Eric Adderson called me yesterday and wants to have a Premier Pro group meet here August 17th. And it's going to be with X-Rite, and they're going to, it's going to be a real color geek thing. You're going to monitor calibration. My voice is carrying. Monitor calibration and how to calibrate your camera with the X-Rite equipment, and they're going to talk about color grading. That is, and we just scheduled that August 17th. So all kinds of events, and then 17th, August 17th.
Thank you.
7. It's 7-ish. I know. I think he starts. I think Eric starts his. Is it 7 when he does? Okay.
We'll put it on the SDMediaPros
Yeah.
site once we know that.
And then September 28th, and this is an event put on by the American Photographic Artists. It's the Jolsons, and they're an amazing couple. They do work for FX. They're doing work for the History Channel. They're a husband and wife team, and they do amazing work. I don't know if you've seen like the title sequences for Taboo, and what else? And for Fargo, they're really talented, and they do these really cool sequences, and they're an amazing couple. So it's going to be really kind of an inspirational talk, and that's going to be September 28th. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Nick has always been very, very gracious about letting us come in here and use this place, and he provides food for us and chairs so we don't have to drag our chairs around. So thank you so much. Next up is Robin.
Howdy.
Robin Martin. Robin is one of the founders of the local Final Cut Pro user group. He's been using the Apple Pro App Suite of tools where he works, which is up at Mission Federal Credit Union. And Robin's going to show a little bit about Motion, which is kind of the illegitimate stepchild to After Effects. And Motion has kind of an interesting way of working with Final Cut. So, Robin, I'm going to let you take it away.
Thanks. Levels good there, Tom? You guys hear me okay? Cool. Howdy, everybody. It's going to work a lot better if you scoot up. I know everybody likes their personal space, but there's a ton of open seats up front. So if you want to have a better look at what I'm doing, unless you know Motion inside and out, I suggest you come up front and take a quick peek. So what I'm going to be showing is a little bit about how some of the graphics work in Final Cut. How many people here are Premiere editors? Mostly, sure. How many people also jump into Final Cut sometimes? Final Cut 10? Okay. So if you're familiar with Adobe CC 2017, they just announced this awesome new feature called the Essential Graphics panel, right? That's essentially how Motion Final Cut 10 has worked for the last 6 years. So I'm going to show you what that looks like on the Final Cut side of things and what you can pull off with it. Final Cut essentially has a copy of Motion built into it. Anything that you can render or do in Motion, Final Cut does as well. And that includes some of the kind of whiz-bang marketing features like 3D type and things like that. So I'm going to show you the sexiest of all things possible, a lower third animation. But there's a lot to it that you can do. And what my goal is to show you how motion works and how you can make animation and do things like that. Once you've got your toolkit or your style guide, you've got a good graphic design sense without having to dig into keyframes and things like that.
Tilt up just a little bit.
I can put the projector higher. Let's try that. That work? Motion, graphics in motion. Yeah. And just kind of just tilt your heads like that the whole time and we'll be set. Oh, now it's going to make that unhappy. Let's go with that. Let's go with that. Good? Beautiful. Okay. Yeah. And I'm going to turn that off. Yeah. All right, that'll shut down in a moment. High tech here, guys. High tech.
So is motion back in the middle. Is that an Apple? That's an Apple product, right?
Yeah. I'm sure they acquired it from somebody back in and kind of put it together, but yeah.
Does it come with the Mac? Yeah.
No, it's a separate purchase. It's the whopping price of $50. Yeah. So, yeah. Nah, not a month. That's one time. I spent $50 on motion 6 years ago. Apple's never asked me for a penny since. So what I'm going to show here is an example of how to do an animation something like this. So you can see there I've got a little logo spinning and I've got some type that animates in and then drops out. And this is just set to kind of loop there. So I'm going to do that without keyframing, without getting into easing or any of that kind of stuff. I'm going to use some of the built-in ways that motion works. Yeah, what do you do on that? We're not coming through that one at all? Nope. Yeah. Yeah, we're on that one there. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I think that one is focused as it's going to get.
It's making all the noise.
Nope, it just stopped. We're good. We're good.
We're not using that, right?
No. Jeff may, so leave it. Or not. Okay, so I'm going to jump over to Motion, and I'm going to start a new project. So inside Motion, you can, it has some presets for you as far as starting points. You can start with a completely blank slate, which is like your typical After Effects project that can be compositing, it can be motion graphics, it can be keying, it can be camera tracking, all that kind of stuff. Or you can build some predefined pieces that are meant for publishing into Final Cut. So that's an effect, so that can be like a color correction or a blur, or like a sepia tone or a black and white. A generator, which is just any type of content that's just going to be in there in Final Cut. A transition, so you can build custom transition animations. Or titles, which is what we're going to do here. So I'm going to click on the big title button down there at the bottom. And let's just say this is 2398. 4 seconds will be plenty, and I'll open it. So I'm going to shut some things down here to try to make this as simple as possible, and we'll see how well this works. So it's the same kind of basic layout as most programs these days. We've got kind of a canvas or a viewer area up top. We have a timeline down below. As we play across, things will happen or not. And we also have our layers. So again, this is sort of like After Effects where you have your layers and your timeline are all kind of stacked up in one place down at the bottom. The interesting thing that Motion brings in is this concept of a HUD. So this is a little heads-up display. I'm going to zoom in on it here. That lets me quickly and easily get at parameters or options for whatever I've selected down in the timeline. So I don't need to live off in my inspectors and adjustments panels and tweaking parameters here and there. I can try to be a little bit more fluid here working with this guy. Zoom back out. So I'm going to try to work with this and the timeline down below and start to build an animation here. So you can see here I've got a couple pieces because I chose a title element that Final Cut started me with. I have some text, which you can barely make out down there, and a background, which is this big sort of like drop zone placeholder. I'm going to turn that off. I don't need it for this one, but if I had a graphic that I wanted to put in there, I could do that there. It's not necessary. I want to make it a little bit easier to see what I'm doing on top of it. The other thing I'm going to do is I've got these little play ranges because one of the cool things in Motion is the fact that it's real time. So as I start to tweak and change things, I can have it play and loop, and you'll be able to see the animation change as I adjust things in real time. And I think that's one of the big benefits of it. Premiere and After Effects are getting there performance-wise, a little bit more kind of real time. But this is where I think if you're not a graphic designer like David who can visualize things and see how it's going to shoo and and do all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, but it would be nice not to sit there and wait for your thing.
Yeah, exactly. You can, if you're like the rest of us and you just kind of need to like, well, if I do this, then what's it going to do? You can kind of see that in real time. So let's start off by, we're going to change this font here to something a little bit more exciting than that. There are some beautiful 3D styles built in. I'm just going to do that because it's big and bold and you'll actually be able to see it. So there's a preset in there that's like a blue plastic treatment. I'm going to dial the size down a little bit, something like there. And a little control here, just drag it up. I got some dynamic guides as I drag things around for snapping. Again, for those of us not with the T-square, things like that help us make sure we're not kind of too far out of alignment like myself. So that's our type there, but it's not doing anything interesting. So what Motion has are these things called behaviors. So there's this menu up at the top, this little drop down, that lets me do all kinds of things. And that's everything from basic fade-ins and fade-outs to motion paths, to some really interesting simulations. You can simulate gravity and attraction and really interesting kind of physical things. I'm going to start with a basic fade in and fade out. Drop that on there and zoom back out. So you can see it's added this new layer essentially, but this layer is just this behavior that I've dropped onto my clip. And then here in the HUD, I have this nice visual representation of what my opacity is going to do over time. So 20 frames in to fade in from completely invisible into opaque. It'll play for as long as it plays, and then at the end, 20 frames. So it's doing all that dynamically, and you can see this purple bar here is the length at which, this purple bar way down at the bottom, is the length that behavior is going to apply to the clip, okay? So again, I'm not going to do this in keyframes. Just kind of moving and dragging around these boxes is going to do things to the layers that they're applied to. So if I start playing here, you can see it's got just a nice little fade up. I'm going to move my play range down a little bit just to make that less frenetic. Okay. So that's going, and I'm going to...
Robin, could I ask?
Yeah, please do.
When you're done with this, can you output this as a alpha channel
Yep.
MOV?
Yep. So you can, in addition to publishing things to Final Cut, to be in their kind of gallery, I can kick this out in any sort of format, H.264, ProRes 444 with alpha channel, uncompressed, animation, codec sequences, all that kind of good stuff. Interestingly, I wish Motion would take a page out of After Effects' book here in terms of dealing with motion blur. Motion blur is something I have to turn on project-wide for rendering. So unfortunately, that's a place where it's lacking. It also does not have a good 3D camera tracker. It has no 3D camera tracker. It's got a point tracker. That gets by for most things, but I wish it had a 3D camera tracker. But I've got 3D rendering options for lighting, shadows, motion blur, all those kinds of things that I can turn on or off when I export out that file. Okay, so back to my looping presentation here. So I've got fade in. That's a good start. Let's start to add something more to my text. Let's add another behavior here, and let's go down to text. There's all these sort of preset animations. So as I choose one of these, you'll see, let's apply a drift in. So now we're getting a fade and a little bit of an animation as it goes in. And I have options here that I can control. One thing that you'll see here is I've got these kind of arrows and things like that. So anybody who's used to 3D modeling programs, this is my X, Y, and Z handles that I can move this piece of text around in space. There's a little blue one here pointing right at me that it's really hard to see. But if I wanted to change where this text is coming from, all I have to do is click and drag on one of these. So I'm going to try to get my green one there. And let's do this, and then we're now, our drift is kind of coming up and in. Or I can bring it back up a little bit, and let's make this in Z space. Let's try bringing it way forward or back, as the case may be. There we go. So now we're kind of coming at the camera. So I've got these, and these circles on the outside are various kinds of rotations. So I can also have it spin into place. Okay. So I know it's way zoomed in there. Kind of step back and see what that's looking like. Okay. Yes?
When you do each one of those modifications, is that recorded in the keyframe?
It saves it in the inspector. So if I wanted to go look at what the keyframes were for this, I could spill open this big inspector window, and here under the behaviors, I have my all my settings for this, and this is where it starts to get deep in terms of what parameters. So any of the physical parameters, the transforms, the size, all those kinds of things can be animated with these things. But that's a lot deeper than I wanted to get to this. But yeah, that's essentially what you're doing when you're manipulating things in that HUD or here in the canvas. You're affecting the keyframes or the values for those attributes.
Is that like a history panel too? So you can be like, oh wow.
No, pretty much it's just undo, and you can kind of step back through it. So that's starting to look like something. There's also this general purpose one called sequence text that I will bring up here. And this essentially says, you tell us what you want it to do, and then we'll make it do it. So I can turn off this drift in behavior that I've applied, and now we're just back to our fade in. And let's say I want it to go to whatever this new position is that I've set. Sorry, let's do from. So I can say, I want you to start off text over here and kind of build into place. It's kind of interesting. Instead of having it animate by character, I can change it to animating by word. So that's not bad. I'm going to delete these off of here and just go back to that. Let's try another sequence behavior, sequence text. Get my HUD back up. So let's do word by word. And let's kind of have it start over here and then come in. So 1, 2, 3. That's kind of interesting. I don't have enough time. So what's going on here is this purple bar here at the bottom that you can kind of make out. That's the entire length of the animation. And so that's going to take the entire clip in order for that to come in. So what I need to do is make that much smaller, and then you'll see those start to come in there. So just by changing the length of time on the timeline for this, I'm adjusting the speed. I don't have to go in and adjust speed parameters. Or it's essentially, this is giving me a visualization of what the keyframes are underneath, and I can just quickly drag and slide that around really easily. Say, okay, I want that animation to come later. I just move it all down, and then it all moves down like that. Yeah, I mean, that's essentially live. This was, before. This came after Lifetype. That's what it grew into. Okay, so that's interesting. So let's move on to adding another visual element. So typically you might have some sort of a bug or a logo or things like that. If I want to drop a piece of text onto the timeline or a layer, this could be a Photoshop file, whatever, I can go to import and just grab a file. This will take PNGs, TIFF files, Illustrator files, Photoshop files, things like that. Not SVGs, not natively. But then I get my logo here on the timeline, and I can grab from the handles, hold down Shift key to restrict so I don't end up squishing or squashing the logo, which is always a bad thing to do. It happens all the time. It's like, how do you not see that? Okay, so I've kind of just dragged and put my logo in place. I'll start playing this again here. It's not doing anything right now, so what I want to do next is I'll add another behavior. This time I'll go up to basic motion and choose spin. And I'll pull my HUD up here. So here's where I can choose which axes and which direction and how fast I'm affecting the spin on this logo. So I may have to cheat and go into the inspector here in a minute. But what I can do here is, see if I grab the right one. So there's kind of like a 3D model of the spin that didn't do anything. You can kind of see doing it. All right, this is one that I typically do go into the inspector because it's kind of tough. So here's where you can see the options I have for the spin control. So you can have it be at a continuous rate, which is what I usually set it at. The X, Y, Z, or custom axis. So if I want this to spin on its spine, essentially rotate in place, that's going to be on the Y axis. So I'll choose Y. The spin rate, I'll choose something like 90 and do continuous. So now when I get back out, there you can see I've made my little logo. Do a nice little spin there. And that will just keep on going. If I set my play range, I haven't told it to spin just for one revolution. It's just going to keep on spinning at that same rate as long as that purple spin bar is going at the bottom. So you can see it's just going to do a nice little spin. If I wanted to go faster, I would increase the degrees of spin here in the inspector. So if I wanted that to spin like crazy, I would crank this up to like 360, and then it's going to whip around like that. So you can see how it's very visceral. I can dial things around. I can move sliders. I can do that and kind of watch exactly and say, that's pretty close. Let me just kind of drag this down a little bit. Maybe it's still too hyperactive. I'll end up coming back and probably just doing something like 90 because it's not too frenetic. Okay? So in terms of getting this into Final Cut, what I would do next is save it. And here's where I have some options for how I want this to show up in the titles gallery in Final Cut. So I can give it a template. So I'll say SDMediaPros demo. I can make my own categories for things. These are ones that are already installed, or I just have a custom one that I can drop it into. And you can also group, there's some kind of groupings that can be inside any of these categories with a theme, but I'll usually leave that one out. Okay? So I'll click Publish. It does its magic behind the scenes. It puts some files in the right folder. And now when I go back over to Final Cut, and I go into my browser to look for titles, I have this new one here. So this was in my pre-bake. Is that me? Yeah. And here's a new one that I just made. So I'll get rid of the old one. And I'll drag this one down. And so there it's just going to do its thing. And here in Final Cut, I can just double click and say, okay, this is this person's first name, last name. So that right there is not too bad. In terms of options, I can get in here and I can go through the regular adjustments panel, text inspector, and make any changes to colors and things like that. But maybe you don't want to turn all of that stuff on for somebody. Maybe you're creating your style guide, you're creating a toolkit to pass on to other people. One of the really key aspects that I want to show real quick in Motion is the ability to publish certain things from Motion into Final Cut. So for this part, I will have to get into the inspector briefly. But there's this key checkbox that by default, any text that you add in Motion is going to be editable in Final Cut. You just double click on it and you get into the little text editor. But if I uncheck this, that lets me take control over what options people will have in Final Cut. So you can't change the font to Comic Sans. No. You can change it to one of these 4 colors that are our brand colors, things like that. So what I would do if I was going to do that is go up here to the appearance. And let's say I just wanted to publish, I'll zoom back out here so it's not too herky-jerky. I just want to publish the color options. We still want to have our blue plastic semi-3D look, but I just want to give you the option to change the color to something else. We'll give you that much control. So you can right-click and go down to the bottom here, and there's a publish option. So any of these parameters, and this can be position, opacity, the font controls, any of the behaviors that we've done with the spins and the fades in and outs, all those can be published into Final Cut, and you'll see what that looks like here. So I click Publish, and it's there. If I want to see what that looks like, I have to go to my project, and here you can see these are the published parameters, and I've said color. So if I save that again, all I have to do is save it, go back to Final Cut. It won't update it in the timeline, so it's not quite like a full-on dynamic linking like in After Effects, but I go back to Final Cut and I grab the latest version of my title and drop it on here, and now you can see I've got my publish parameter here for the color. But I can no longer change my text. So, oopsie, you're stuck with type text here forever. But you can make it any color you want. So if I wanted to give them that much control back, you can see the process. So when you're building out this title like this that you're going to share among a team that sort of maybe one designer is in charge of, and then you're sharing along, you'll just publish those specific parameters back into Final Cut that people would need to have access to. The one other thing I want to show that's kind of cool, and then I'll make sure that Jeff gets his time here as well, is let's say instead of this plain old, come back up, this plain old logo, we're going to go 3D. We're going to give it the metal chrome treatment. that all the kids love these days. The 3D features built into Motion and Final Cut are pretty nice and handy, especially for doing things like this. So I'm going to add a new piece of text to the timeline. So I just clicked on the T tool down here. I'm going to type in, and I'm just going to put in the letter A. And I'm going to make that pretty big. Here, let's get out of the inspector, try to do it back in the HUD, because it shows better. I'm not caring about the font at all right now. All I care about is sort of relative size. I want to make sure it's centered, center aligned, and I'll show you why in a minute. And then I'll get my selection tool back here, kind of put it back in place, align it more or less next to that. And let's choose a 3D font style. There it is, Chrome. Got to have Chrome. Okay, and we'll do that. Make sure that's starting right at the beginning. And so here's one of the other cool things you can do with those parameters. So with this, remember the spin parameter that we have here? I'm just going to turn layers on and off. So we have our spin parameter here on our logo. All I need to do, I can copy paste or I can just drag it from one to the other. So I'm just going to paste it over there onto that piece of text, hide the logo, and now that text logo has the same exact parameter. I didn't have to redo keyframes or anything like that. Really simple drag and drop or copy paste there. I want to make sure that that is published, so I'm going to go into the inspector. I'm going to say my text here. I don't want it to be editable in Final Cut completely, but I do want to publish it, which I have to click here. Come back, publish. So what I'm publishing now is the color of the actual font. Oh, I'll go ahead and let them change it too. Let's do that. Let's publish that text as well. Just to make sure things are clear, we'll say this is the 3D logo. And I'll do that up there. And that's the text. I save those changes here. I'll switch back to Final Cut. And I'll get rid of my old version. Put the new one in. So there you can see I've got that little spinning A. And what I can do now is, when I have that selected, nope, I needed to publish one more thing. So I need to publish that font. Because what you can do in Final Cut is any sort of text can be turned into 3D. But there's some great tools that let you take SVG graphics and turn those into a font. So you can take all of your vector graphics and then essentially make a font out of them that Final Cut can treat like 3D text. So what I want to do here is go back to here and change the font, or I'm sorry, publish the font. So I'm going to publish that font as well for my Chrome A. Save that. Switch back to Final Cut. One more time, do this dance. And now, here in my inspector, I can change to a font that I made before called Water Logo. So now, we'll hide all this stuff so you can see it pretty clearly there. So now, it inherits the spinning properties. It's got all its cool 3D effects, lighting, shading, things like that. But anything that I type in that field will turn into that 3D. It can be any sort of logo that I've converted to a font, or even good old webdings or wingdings can be pretty cool when you put them in 3D. So that's the basic process. I hope that gives you an idea of some of the cool stuff Motion can do and be very sort of visceral and organic, and you can drag and drop and slide and move things and get a sense of what that's going to do in action without having to kind of dive too deep into keyframes and stuff like that. Yeah, any questions? All righty.
No questions at all?
I know, I've shocked them. I've shocked them. You can do that in Motion?
So while Jeff Troeber is setting his thing up, I think that the way it was explained best to me is the difference between how After Effects works with Premiere and how Motion works with Final Cut. Let me think this through so I don't get it wrong. With After Effects, you're working inside out, right? You're taking things in in Premiere and you're sending them out to After Effects. You're doing whatever you do in After Effects and it's updating here. With Motion, you're working from the outside in. So you're creating these templates that can then be used inside of Final Cut, right? So you build your title, you publish the parameters that you want your editor to have access to. In many of our cases, we are that same person. And then once it's in Final Cut, you can make those changes there inside of Final Cut. I really like using Motion because of the way it works with Final Cut, but it does fall apart at a certain point, and After Effects has to come in. And usually that point is when you start needing 3D camera trackers, because you just can't do that inside of Motion. Are you up and running? That fast? Good, because I've run out of shit to say, so. The only way you could get it, no, the only way you could get it to Premiere is if you just did the old school render out a movie file, right, and bring it in. Jeff, you ready to go? So Jeff Troeber is not only a happy board member of SDMediaPros, he also works up at, I made a note of this, Seismic Software. And at Seismic Software, Jeff spends a lot of time doing screen capture stuff that's already in the computer that has to be captured out into a video file that he can then work with in an edit system. So I've used this for a lot of different things, screen capturing stuff. There's been times when I've had clients send me like, well, I need to take this piece of video that's over here on YouTube and I need to put it into something and I can find no way of downloading it. So I just screen capture the damn thing. Today I had a client send me a PowerPoint presentation that had an embedded video in it. If you've ever tried to get an embedded video out of PowerPoint, it will drive you insane. So you know what I did? I just made it full screen and used a screen capture software and just captured it in as a video file. So screen capture can come in very, very handy. I'm running out of things to say, Jeff. Does everybody have a raffle ticket? I don't get a raffle ticket because I'm one of the board members. Oh, do I? I have a chance to win Crapple? Wow, I am glad I came. Because what was that one gift you just touched your genitalia hand sanitizer or something? You don't have any of that? That's the whole reason people came. No pun intended. Thank you for catching on to that, David. You ready to go? Ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Troeber.
As I said, I work for a software company up in Delmar called Seismic Software. We specialize in sales enablement, which basically takes the PowerPoint out of the hands of the salespeople. We create templates that they just answer a series of questions and there's a presentation. It's a lot more complex than that because we have to meet regulations for financial services companies and things like that. So there's two parts to the software. There's the front end, which your salespeople, people out in the field would have that would run on your iPad, on your phone, your laptop, whatever, that's their interface. It's a web-based interface. We call that Doc Center. And then the back end is the control center, which the marketing people, the IT people would use to set up the libraries, all the content, create the documents that where they answer the questions are called live docs, and that's where our technology is. So we have two audiences that we document for, and that we will be aiming at. The end user, which we have to keep it very simple for them because they really don't want to take a lot of time to learn about anything. They want the information right there. And the product actually is real simple on that end. And then the back end, the control center, is a pretty complex piece of software running on Azure, if you're familiar with that, the system that Microsoft uses. So we're at the mercy of Microsoft at times, and I see those emails every once in a while, Microsoft is having a problem. And so our customers are having a problem. But I guess I've been doing technical communications and video production for a long time. I always could see that the value of using video in technical communications and documentation as I was writing documentation. And now that's coming to fruition. This job and my previous job, I've been doing more, as much video as I have been doing writing big documents. So we try to make it interesting, try to get people to read. My goal, and I'll tell this when I go into an interview and when I talk to my bosses, my goal is to reduce the phone calls to support. So if the customer has something easy, something good they can follow, and they can find that information quickly and easily and it's understandable, then I've done my job. I have a question for you all. It's how many of you still actually read a manual? Oh, wow. Bravo. Thank you for keeping me employed. PDF counts. PDF counts. I'm not going to get into the print versus PDF war. And how many of you, when you want to know something, go to YouTube? And how many of you watch some of these YouTube videos with the guy with the cheap little headset and the cursor and say, what did he just say? What is that? Where? Yeah, okay.
Turn the music down in the background.
Yeah, turn the music down. Next time, don't do it at 2 in the morning when you're stoned. You know, it's, yeah, you know, I don't care what your cat just did. Just do, you know, and those drive me nuts. When I interviewed for this job, the first thing, the phone interview, they took, the director of support had me go to a website, said, watch this video, you know, and it was a video that my predecessor did. And she said, well, what do you think of that? I tried to be diplomatic, but it sucked. The sound was bad. It just was not a good learning tool. So I said, I can do better. And they believed me. So now I'm employed. So
They still believe you.
They still believe me. And we've grown from, we were in an open office with maybe 20 people or so when I started a year and a half ago. We're in a new facility right by where they're building One Paseo in Del Mar. We have a floor of a new building. Company-wide, we're over 300 people worldwide. Locally, we aren't that big. We have an office here, Boston, New York, Chicago. Just opened up something in Australia. A lot of people all around the country working remotely. So the company is growing very fast, and the product is a very, very big niche market right now. Sales enablement is becoming a really big thing because companies are realizing they can save a lot of time and a lot of money by having something pre-built. They can have their salespeople just put it together in the field. In 5 minutes, they have something they can send. They can send a PDF. They can send what we call live send, where they can share it with the customer and the prospect and you can actually see what the prospect has looked at. You know, as far as for how long they looked at a page of something. You can do. We have some interactive, kind of like a screen sharing type thing where you can go out and you can share your content with the customer live while you're on the phone with them. So that's basically what we do. As I said, I've been doing this a long time, and to look back to where we were, you know, besides printing manuals, you know, if you wanted to get a screen into a manual, you know, a lot of times it was print screen. You know, and we've all had our problems with print screen. You have to take it into a graphics program and clean it up and yada yada. And then one of my tricks was, because the print screens never looked really that great, the screens I got from the engineering machines weren't that good, I would manually create a screen. So recreating it, you know, drawing it, going way back, McDraft or Photoshop, whatever, you know, just manually creating the screens. One of my first jobs in high tech, I was working for a company that we put in a video production suite, SVHS AB roll. So I'm dating myself, and the bosses said, well, we have this new product that's network management. It's a software product because we mostly built hardware. We'd like to do a training video. Can you take your camera and take a picture of the screen? I said, well, yeah, I can do that, but you're going to get the scan line and all that. So we had to rent a scan converter, which was a $20,000 piece of equipment that rented for $1,000 a day. And they would record, you'd have someone running the software, and they'd be recording it to a tape for you. And that was how we got screenshots. So, now it's a lot easier. You can do it right on your computer. You have a lot more options in print screen. And for video, if you want to capture video, you have free and some inexpensive options. And they're really good now. They're a lot better than they were, and it gets better all the time. And I wanted to go through some of the things that, a little bit, I'll go through some of the options you have as far as tools to use, and show you some what you can do to make software interesting, instead of having just this static screen with a cursor going around on the screen and sound that sounds like it was recorded in a can. So we'll go through some of the processes we do. What do we use screen captures for? We use them for promotional videos. We do a lot of promotional videos to sell the new products, sell the new the new features, our solutions. Do a lot of that for the product marketing department. We do product demos. We'll take talent into the studio. We were in the studio yesterday. In our new facility, myself and our video creator were able to talk the CEO into building a studio in the new facility. It's not big, but it has a psych in it. I have lights in it. It's a real studio, and we're shooting in there. So we'll do product demos with talent in the studio, and when we do those demos, we incorporate the screens into that with animation. Our video creator, in fact, we have 2 video creators, now we just hired another junior person, but they specialize in After Effects. And the fellow that, our first video creator, is a wizard in After Effects. I was hoping he could be here tonight to show you some of the stuff he did, because he's just absolutely amazing. But he'll do an animation, and he'll create an animation. My previous life, before I was went into high tech, I was in radio. I have a lot of experience in voiceover, so that was one reason the company hired me, is that I could actually do voiceover. I had to have a studio at home and do my own voiceover, so it saves them having to go out and find someone. We also will do training videos, which are a little bit longer. We have, the way our product's been growing, we have over 200 customers now. We'll have 100 people calling in on a webinar, and if you've ever used GoToMeeting or one of those things, once you start hitting about 100 people, it doesn't work really well, and people get locked out, and people miss things. So we're taking those webinars, we're breaking them into small pieces and making those into training videos in the studio. We have our trainer in there, she's doing her thing. We take that video, and we do a screen capture of all the stuff she talks about, and then use that as a B-roll, incorporate that in, do a lot of effects, and do highlighting and all that to make it interesting, and to make it to be a produced training video, and not, as I said, not a YouTube thing. We'll do tutorials. That's something I do a lot of. The tutorials are brief 1-2 minute pieces that I'll do in a program called Captivate, and those are things that just showing one little task. How do you do this? How do you install the product? How do you customize something? Just something that's really quick, because the attention span is not that great. And same with task demos. This is something we're moving into what we call a community, which is an online, it's everything, knowledge base, chat, forum, and FAQs, all that. And when in an article we'll have on there, we'll put a little piece of just a small video, 10 seconds or whatever, just showing this is how you do this. This is where you find this menu. This is how you fill in this, things like that. Just so, because people will read, but they still want the video, or, we'll also have the screenshots too. And as I said, we also will use screen capture, static screen captures, and documentation. So we do a lot of that as well. Before I start a video, capturing video to prepare for a screen recording or for to do a tutorial or whatever, I determine what's needed, a video, a still, what is needed for this particular project, what is the audience going to want, how are we going to produce this. We'll do some production in the basic production in the capture program. We'll take it into After Effects, we'll finish it off in Premiere or Final Cut. So it's we have a whole workflow that would do that. And one thing I would say to you, if you're when you're doing something for a client, learn the product. Learn at least the part that you need to do the video on. Understand what it's doing. That way you don't have to keep calling them, how do I do this, how do I do that, or spend a lot of time and spin your wheels trying to figure out how something works. So learn it. Plan it. What screens do you need? And go through the software. Walk your way through the software and look at the screens and see what do you have for the system you're working on. And by doing that, you also see, okay, if I'm working on an engineering system, engineers tend to put funny names for fields and put strange things in there, and that's not really something you want the customer to see, or somebody's real name or their email address or phone number. So you want to get that out of there, and I'll talk about what I do with that, how I get rid of that material as well. My script, I have my voiceover, I have every shot planned out, even what I want entered in the fields, so I know what all my graphics will need to be before I even start creating that. And like I said, I check the screens. I do a dry run. Is this going to work? If you're just shooting stills, as I mentioned, the program Captivate, basically you can shoot consecutively, but it puts them all in slides or in frames, and you want to be sure you're getting everything in each frame. If you're doing video, it's a little less forgiving, and you better be sure that you're moving along and you're keeping at a good pace, and you have places where you can edit. And as I said, if possible, replace real names, addresses, confidential information, company information. We did something recently for HP. They paid us a lot of money for our product and said they wanted custom training, which we generally don't do for clients. But we had to be sure and go through their product and make sure we had exactly what they wanted in it, their names, their content and all that. Stills versus video. Screen captures and stills can easily be edited. Take them into Photoshop. I do what I call Franken-screening. I adjust the content as it needs to be. I take it into Photoshop. I have that initial screen capture. I make a copy of that, so I always have that original, and I use the layers. David mentioned layers. I live in the layers, and a layer for everything, for each text field that I'm filling in, that I'm creating. And one thing too, when you're doing that, when you're doing your screen captures, when you're creating things, make sure things are consistent. Just like a movie, just like any other video, you want consistency. So make sure things are consistent. And the nice thing with stills, they can be animated. They can be taken into After Effects. So that's stills. Videos, I say, creates a smooth flow. You can animate those. You can add, with either one, you can use camera movement, especially in After Effects. Advantages, basic tools, advantages, they're free, save the captures as a file. Disadvantages for basic tools, simple ones, limited functionality, again, must be brought into an editor to modify them. Your operating systems come with the default other than print screen. Windows has a snipping tool, which allows you to capture a window or capture a region or whatever. Macintosh has the grab utility similar. And you can capture video with QuickTime on a Mac, which also will record an iOS device. You can use that as your source. Free downloads, Jing, which is from TechSmith, and they do a couple other programs, which I'll talk about in a second. That does still and video. You can do sharing with it. Again, Jing has limited functionality. Giphy Capture is available from the Mac App Store, and you can create animated GIFs with that. Giphy does a whole lot of other things, but this is something that a freebie that they've come up with. This is a program I found from NCH Software called Debut Video Capture. It captures the whole screen. It's kind of a simplified version of ScreenFlow, if you're familiar with ScreenFlow. It's free for non-commercial use, $35 for a Pro Edition, and they're on sale this month, 30% off. I saw on their site the other night. Mac or Windows, you can do video captures, or you can take screenshots out of your video, record the screens, a webcam, streaming, external devices like an IP camera, whatever why you want to use that, but you can add captions, adjust the frame rate, resolution, color, so it doesn't have any editor in it. It's just, so it's kind of limited there, but it's a freebie to get you started if you're just looking to get source. Purchase tools, Robo Screen Capture, that comes with the Adobe Technical Communications Suite. If you get it, don't bother. It's basic. It does a few more things than the default programs, but if I was you, spend your money on this, on Snagit. And I can't say enough good things about Snagit. It's $50 for the program. You can bundle it with Camtasia, which is their video recording program for screens. Windows or Mac. Still does basic video capture. You can't do any video editing in it, but it does video capture. Lots of features, call-outs, effects. You just point and click to add a torn edge to a screen if you want to crop a screen and give it kind of a nice effect, or a drop shadow, or call-outs or anything. Snagit is really a really nice program. As I said, it's a standard. And at least on the PC side, it has two utilities. You have the capture utility, which just comes up with a little capture to select how you want to capture, still, video, what you want to capture, or it will also, it also has the editor. So Snagit, as I said, is pretty much the standard as far as technical communication goes. And things with both screen recorders. Let's go into that now. They have some basic NLE editing. Camtasia and ScreenFlow are the two big ones. Multiple tracks. You can set your recording area. You can add some motion graphics such as captions and effects. You can add interactivity, which is big in training. If you're doing, if you want to do training and track questions and things like that, or you want to create a software simulation. They actually both have chroma keying now, and you can record with a camera with each of those. ScreenFlow, $99. It's a great program. I've done some editing in it. I've done some work in it for clients. It's Mac only. It again records iOS devices. It can do an animated GIF export if you're looking for something quick and easy. Record on a Retina, some good filters. It has an easy cleanup of background noise. That was one of their highlights on their website as far as audio filters. It's a recorder and an editor, you know, the two utilities like Snagit has. You can set the record area, turn the camera on and off, configurable record options, and it has a picture-in-picture with PowerPoint or Keynote, which is nice if you're, Mike was talking about bringing in PowerPoint slides. If you have someone talking and you want to bring the slide in, or vice versa, you can do that with ScreenFlow. Camtasia is $199. It's ScreenFlow on steroids. It has a little more to it. It's both Mac and PC. It records up to 4K. I've just been switching to that because I've been using a different program, Captivate. Speech-to-text capability, more video animations, pre-made arrows and call-outs like that, camera-like movements for the screens. So it has a lot of effects. When I looked at it, it looked similar to looking at Final Cut or Motion, you know, as far as some of the effects menus and like that. Okay, I see I got 5 minutes left. And again, that one does quizzes for online learning. And Captivate is a high-end program that does, as I said, it does the screen captures, can do it as video, can do it as stills. You can add video tracks. What I do in Captivate is I have my script. I bring my script in for each slide. That way I can time out everything. And it has some limited motion graphics. I find it frustrating because there's things in that I want to do that I have to take it into After Effects to get done because it doesn't do all the things and its motion is not real smooth. But it does do a nice job. If you're going to be working with an LMS, a learning management system, it's a good program. Subscription is $30 a month or $1,099 for a for a full license. And that's all I have on that. I can show you real quick. Let me find this here. Give me a sec. And let me bring this up over here. You can see this is a promotional video our video creator did in a weekend because the product marketing guy came to him and said, I want to get something out on this new feature we have on analytics. So you can see with the screen, he took a screen capture. Actually, the engineer took a screen capture off a test system, because that's what you do a lot of times in software, and he put a lot of motion to it. So you can see the motion. I don't know why. Oh, that's the other. There. Yeah, it's one. I know I didn't watermark it for Sanyo. Right? Yeah. But you can see how we moved it around to highlight, and we shot it in 4K. Because everything's going to go out in 1080, so you shoot it in 4K, and you can go in, you don't lose anything. It's nice and sharp and crisp. And when we do this, I don't have the sound up now. We can't play the sound through the same way, but we have a voiceover under it. We have music under it. And everything we do, all our videos we do, our training videos, everything we package, it looks professional, it looks clean. It doesn't look like a YouTube video where the guy's struggling to turn on his computer. Everything is, I beg of you, if you have to do a video explaining software, don't put on a cheap headset and sit there and record and say, well, now do this, do that. Please don't do that. Professionally produce it. I mean, if you're going to record while you're going through a screen, make sure you have good audio, you have a good script, leave yourself space to edit, but produce it, package it. I think lynda.com does a really nice job. We really like the way they do stuff. But anyway, you can see that. And let me share one more with you. Pardon me? That was done in After Effects. I'll show you something we did in Captivate. Let's see here.
But the base video was captured with what?
This is something we did that was created in After Effects. But this video, this is just a quick tutorial I did, is done in Captivate. You can't really hear it. But anyway, like I said, this is something we did quick. We're actually changing the way we do these. But this was done in Captivate, so I could time things out with it, with the fake voice, with the script and the generated voice. But then after we do it in Captivate, I output it to a video file, and we take it into Premiere and add whatever we've created in After Effects. We put the bumper on it. But we will. Everything is produced. Mickey, you had a question?
Yeah, I was just curious, man. I played with this a few years ago. Do they still allow you to go in after you've done your screen capture to do the call-outs and
everything is layered in Captivate, and your properties are there. You create the banner across the top is just a master slide. And you create that, and then you apply the master slides as you want. But yeah, you can go in and you can adjust. You can adjust call-outs. I don't think the call-outs are as good in Captivate as they are in Camtasia, to be honest. And the motion graphics are better in Camtasia. But as I said, with Captivate, you could create a simulated or a software simulation with it. You can make it interactive. A lot of the others have interactivity too, but I think Captivate has it more so. But make it interesting. I'll share one more quick one with you because I know my time is up here. This is one we did for training for our salespeople for our medical device products. And the product manager came to me and said he had this PowerPoint. He was having all kinds of problems doing something. So I put this together for him using his PowerPoint, and if I can scroll ahead, I just want to show you You see, now see, because it's done on an iPad, or I was using iPad as an example, so I put an iPad in there, so it's just not a whole screen. And there you can see I put in call outs.
Is that a real iPad or fake?
That's a graphic laid over a screenshot. I took the video or the captures off an iPad, and these were all done with stills, and I animated all this and see, I've mixed it in with his points from the PowerPoint, and this is self-contained. This was designed to train our salespeople to do a first call for our medical device products. So it walks through, here's how our product works in that space. So, any other questions? Yes, David?
How are you guys selling this to folks? Because I run into a lot of stuff where people want to do this, and they're still kind of, well, the audio could be all right, the video could be all right. My kid has a video camera.
Well, like I said, when I was interviewed, the company was still small, and they were interested in doing video. And my predecessor did some training videos, and the sound was bad. He didn't have a good voice. It was basically YouTube video. And they wanted something, they took a look at some of the stuff I did, and they wanted something that they could present to a customer. Everything I do, you talked about branding. Everything I do, I work with the marketing people to make sure we're on brand, we're on message. I use the same fonts, the same colors. We have a branding sheet that has all our colors on it, our fonts and everything. And those of us that are on the creative team, if you will, we laugh because we have all the color numbers all memorized, and we can look at something and say, no, that's not right.
But no, it's interesting because people are starting to get it, that the video needs to be legible.
Yeah.
And like, especially yours with all that tech and text and all that.
Yeah.
You need to get that.
Yeah.
And not have to rewind the video 20 times.
And one thing
I think people are seeing that now.
and I think you see that with Linda, with the way they present. You have the script, and it follows the script.
People that talk, they're teachers.
Yeah.
And they really know how to do it.
And what I'm proposing, as I said, we're just starting and building a community, a seismic community for our customers. And what I'm proposing for the page is what I've been working with our video creator, and he came up with the idea. We got it from Asana's, another company, and then but of putting the video there, the tutorial, whatever, have the instructions, so because people don't want to have to scrub back through a video to find out what they missed, what step they missed. So you have the instructions there, you have the screenshots, and you have little tutorials or little animated GIFs. So everything is there. It's both. And
So what is the expected turnaround? I mean, obviously there's being around sales managers and whatnot, they're going to have their last minute rushes. But generally speaking, when you're preparing one of these training pieces or demo pieces, what is your usual?
it depends. When we had the thing for HP, they were rolling out beginning of April or May or whatever. They finally got us the final system and the material and the content they wanted in a month before. I had 20 some odd tutorials to do. I wrote the scripts, had to shoot them, edit them. I worked 70 or 80 hour weeks. These guys were laughing for a month. But it depends. The webinars, or not the webinars, but the training videos, the demos, it takes a while because we go through the whole production process. We plan, we storyboard, we script, we shoot, we edit, we have a whole workflow. So, I mean, one of these tutorials, I can probably knock off between writing it and capturing it and getting it all done, a week to 2 weeks, depending, on how long it is and how complex it is. Some of them are more complex because they have to do a lot more Franken-screening. So,
So with that, we should probably start wrapping this up so Nick's not going to be here all night long.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
The one piece of advice I can give you guys on doing screen capture stuff, because I just did a piece for lynda.com, is break it down into very small segments that you can deliver, and then take your hand off the friggin' mouse. right? Because that way when you start editing, the mouse isn't jumping all over the place. Do what you're gonna do, take your hand off, talk, finish, then go to your next job.